I was just thinking about how much I tell practical jokes and how sometimes it gets taken the wrong way. A lot of times I make these jokes because I'm bored, and I think after the experience of 2020, I'll never be so. I'll never complain about being bored again. But I was just thinking about all the practical jokes that I have done over the years and how much trouble they have gotten me into with my coworkers and my friends. When I was working on my PhD, one day my classmate and I were sitting in class, and our professor had written this equation on the board involving the probability of cracking some kind of encryption scheme. And he wanted us to punch in this equation into our calculator to see just how low this probability was. I forgot to bring my calculator, so I asked my classmate if I could borrow his cell phone so I can enter it into his cell phone. And he said, well, that's not going to work. I don't think I have a natural log button on my cell phone. It turned out the equation involved the natural log of 2. And I knew what the natural log of 2 was because I used to love to write computer programs to calculate it. And so he let me use his cell phone, and I punched it in and I got the answer, and he was kind of impressed that I knew this number. I was still in the calculator mode of his cell phone, and I put 911 into the calculator, and I told him, "Hey, I'm calling 911." And then I pretended to talk to 911, and I said the building was on fire. And he chased after me for the cell phone, and then I showed him, "Hey, what's 911 times 911?" I wanted to show him that I was still in the calculator mode, but he was not amused, and he never let me touch his cell phone again. A few years ago, I was filling out some kind of a survey for my job. You know, just kind of, whether or not we were satisfied with various things at the job. And at the bottom of that survey, I wrote, "Thank you for using CompuServe." When I was a kid, my family and I used to use CompuServe for our internet, and when we were turning it off, the computer would say, "Thank you for using CompuServe." Again, I was just really bored. At the time, I didn't know what real boredom in 2020 was like. A couple years ago, I was working at a software giant, and we needed to write some test code for this software package. And part of the test code involved testing whether the computer could set a date as the last time that the file was changed or something like that. And we had just had an anniversary for September 11th. So as a test case, I put September 11th of 2001. And a couple days later, I discovered somebody had changed the test date, and I was pretty upset about that. I don't know why I was so upset about that. I don't have any friends or family members involved in 9/11. I just thought it was pretty insulting that somebody would change code that I wrote. And I went around asking people why the fuck did they change it, as if I were serious about that. Another time at the same company, one time I was reviewing some code, and I noticed that some of our code, somebody had set all the variable names. This was in C++. All of the variable names involved getting high on marijuana. I think there was a dank 420 or something like that, and somehow it had slipped through the code review process and nobody had caught on to it. I laughed my head off, if I remember correctly. One time we were getting ready for a meeting at the same company. Actually, we used to have this page of a document that everybody would edit with meeting notes, and I was bored out of my mind, and I kept deleting and changing one of my coworkers' notes. It was just really silly. I was just changing his phrasing, and he would change it back and forth. We must have wasted 2 or 3 minutes doing that. Again, I never lived through 2020 at the time. I didn't know what boredom was. I thought being stuck in the office on a Monday was boring, but now that I've lived through 2020, I'll probably have a new perspective. And then I worked with some kids at a tutoring center. I was working at a tutoring center, and the kids would win prizes. You know, they would win like little scorecards, and after a certain amount of score, they could trade it in for a prize. And one of my students was really gung ho about winning this. I think it was a Samsung cell phone, and I was joking to him that, you know, if he learns his I was tutoring him in math. If he learns his math, maybe one day he'll be able to use it somehow to find a cure for cancer, and then he'll really be able to buy all the Samsung phones in the world. I think this was a fourth or fifth grader that I was working with, and he didn't really appreciate the joke. It wasn't really a joke; it was kind of serious, but he didn't really appreciate it. And again, one time we were once again filling out a little survey for the workplace, and at the bottom of that survey, this was at the tutoring center, I wrote, "Give me a cubic meter of silver. I'm broke." And I turned it in. I didn't think much of it until a few weeks later. My boss goes, "What is this all about?" And I quickly came up with an answer. I said, "This would be a great math problem. You know, maybe we should calculate how much that cubic meter of silver would weigh and how much it's worth." And sure enough, I used it as an example for my students. So it wasn't a complete loss, but it was really silly. That's what boredom does to me. And then a few times when I've been traveling, I got really bored. So I was on my way to Warsaw, Poland, and I had taken a taxi from my apartment to SeaTac Airport. And during the taxi ride, I was talking to the taxi driver, and I talked about all the excitement of all the places I wanted to go in Warsaw. And I said, "Oh, by the way, I met this. I've been talking to this girl on OkCupid from Warsaw, and hopefully we're gonna meet up." And the taxi driver said, "You know, it might be a scam, and you know, are you sure you're safe doing that?" And I felt pretty safe. I mean, I'm pretty street smart. But as a joke, I told the taxi driver, "Don't worry, you know, I just started a new job, and I have life insurance with that job." And he just laughed his head off, and it kind of lightened the mood. As it turns out, when I got to Warsaw, the girl, she didn't look nearly as nice as she did on the site. I think the picture on the site was several years old, and that was that. But I love jokes like that. Another time I was at the airport, and I happened to see this guy's boarding pass, and he had a seat that was like 44A or something like that. And in Chinese, the number 4 sounds like death. And I told him, "You know, 4 sounds like death. You know, that's a really unlucky ticket." And he was pretty upset. He goes, "Shut the fuck up." You know, I just get bored too much, and I joke so much about stuff like that. I need to stop before it gets me hurt. It costs me my job. It causes me to lose respect. Next time I get bored, maybe I need to think about 2020, and I'm sure the other boredom will not be nearly as bad.